A gleaming Porsche was my brother's birthday gift. A 3-pack of socks was mine, and the silent proof my family had already taken everything else. The roar of the engine was the first clue. It wasn't the sound of my dad's sensible sedan or my mom's minivan. It was a deep guttural growl that vibrated through the floorboards of the patio, making the half-empty glasses of lemonade tremble. Everyone at my brother Liam's 18th birthday party fell silent, turning towards the driveway. And there it was, a gleaming, ridiculously expensive black Porsche 718 Cayman with a giant red bow stuck to the hood like a cherry on a sundae of pure, parental favoritism. My dad had the keys dangling from his finger, a grin plastered on his face so wide it looked painful. "Happy birthday, son!" he boomed, tossing the keys to Liam, who caught them with a whoop of pure, unadulterated ecstasy. My mom was already crying, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. "You've earned this, Liam. You've worked so hard." I almost choked on my lemonade. Worked so hard? Liam's idea of hard work was figuring out which Xbox game to play. He'd scraped through high school with a C average, his main achievements being the captain of the beer pong team and setting a new record for detentions. Meanwhile, I was 2 years into a chemical engineering degree, holding a 4.0 GPA, and working 30 hours a week at a soul-crushing retail job to pay for my own books and gas, because my parents insisted it would build character. My 20th birthday had been the week before. Since our birthdays were so close, my parents decided to celebrate them together. "It's just more efficient, sweetie," my mom had said with a breezy wave of her hand. Efficient for them, maybe. It meant my milestone was just an appetizer for Liam's main course. As Liam and his pack of hyena-like friends swarmed the car, revving the engine and blasting music, my dad finally seemed to remember I existed. He clapped me on the shoulder, his eyes still glued to the Porsche. "Right, your turn, kiddo," he said, his voice thick with performative cheer. He handed me a small rectangular package wrapped in leftover Christmas paper. It was light, suspiciously light. I forced a smile, murmuring my thanks to the chorus of open it," from my aunts and uncles, who had already forgotten about the sports car in the driveway. I carefully peeled back the tape and unfolded the paper. Inside was a 3-pack of gray athletic socks. Hanes, not even the good kind. The thin, scratchy ones that get holes in the toes after 2 washes. "We know how much you value practical things," my mom chirped, coming over to give me a one-armed hug. "You're so responsible, always thinking about the future. We knew you wouldn't want us to make a big fuss." The silence that followed was deafening. Even Liam's friends had paused their worship of the Porsche to stare. The difference was so stark, so brutally, laughably obvious that it felt like a scene from a sitcom. A Porsche for the golden child who did nothing. A 3-pack of socks for the responsible daughter who did everything right. I felt a strange calm wash over me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was clarity, like a camera lens snapping into perfect focus. I looked at my mother's smiling face, my father's proud expression as he watched Liam, and I saw them for what they really were. This wasn't an oversight. This was a statement. Liam was their show pony, their investment in a flashy, exciting life. I was their utility, the reliable, low-maintenance appliance you keep in the basement. I held up the socks. "Thank you," I said, and my voice was so steady it surprised me. "They're very practical." I folded the wrapping paper neatly and put it in the trash. I endured the rest of the party with a plastic smile, nodding along as relatives told me how mature I was, how I was such a good example for my energetic brother. Each compliment felt like a tiny stab. Later that night, long after the last guest had left and the sound of Liam's snores echoed from down the hall, I sat on my bed in the dark. The socks were on my nightstand, a monument to my own stupidity for ever thinking things would change. For 20 years, I had chased their approval. I got straight A's, I won academic awards, I never asked for anything. I paid for my own car insurance from the minute I got my license. And for what? to be handed a consolation prize while my brother was handed the world. The anger finally came then, cold and sharp. It wasn't a raging fire. It was a blade of ice sliding into my heart. I wasn't just going to be angry. I was going to be gone. But first, a thought sparked in my mind, a dark, ugly suspicion. My parents weren't wealthy. My dad was a mid-level manager and my mom was a part-time dental hygienist. A brand new Porsche was so far beyond their means, it was laughable. So where did the money come from? My heart started to pound. Quietly, I crept out of my room and into my dad's home office. The family computer hummed softly in the corner. I knew his password. It was Liam's birth date, of course. My hands trembled as I clicked through files, not even sure what I was looking for. Bank statements? Loan applications? Then I saw it. A folder on the desktop, innocently labeled College Savings. I clicked it open. There were two subfolders. One was labeled Liam. It was empty. The other was labeled with my name. I clicked it. Inside was a single PDF of a bank statement from an account I recognized, the educational trust my grandparents had set up for me when I was born. It was supposed to have over $100,000 in it. I opened the statement, my breath catching in my throat. I scrolled down to the transaction history, and there it was, dated 3 days ago, a wire transfer for $70,000. My eyes scanned across the line to the memo, and the world tilted on its axis. It read, Porsche 718 Cayman, down payment. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, the glowing numbers burning into my retinas. $70,000. My money. The money my grandparents had meticulously saved for my future. A legacy from two people who had actually seen me, who had believed in my potential. And it was gone, siphoned away to buy a monument to my brother's mediocrity. The rage that had been a blade of ice before was now a glacier, cold, immense, and moving with unstoppable force. I wasn't just going to leave, I was going to scorch the earth behind me. My hands stopped trembling. A chilling clarity descended, sharpening my thoughts into weapons. I navigated to the print function, the whirring of our ancient printer in the dead silent house, sounding like a jet engine. I held my breath, praying no one would wake up. The page slid out, warm and damning. I didn't stop there. I found the original trust documents my parents had scanned and saved, the ones that clearly stated the funds were to be used exclusively for my post-secondary education and could only be accessed with my written consent upon turning 21 or by my legal guardians for my direct educational benefit before then. A down payment on a luxury sports car didn't quite fit the bill. I printed all of it, every single page outlining their spectacular breach of fiduciary duty. Then I wiped the computer's recent history, a small petty act that gave me immense satisfaction. Next, the safe. It was in their bedroom closet. The thought of entering their room while they slept, a room I hadn't set foot in for years, made my skin crawl. But the original documents were in there, along with my passport and birth certificate. I needed them. I slipped off my shoes and moved through the darkened hallway like a ghost. The door to their room was slightly ajar. My dad's snores, a rhythmic rattling sound, were a steady cover for my movements. I crept across their plush carpet, my eyes fixed on the closet door. Inside, tucked behind my mother's shoe collection, was the small metal safe. The combination was, predictably, Liam's birthday. Again. I twisted the dial, the soft clicks agonizingly loud in the silence. It sprang open. I grabbed the thick manila envelope with my name on it. Inside was my life on paper. Birth certificate, social security card, passport, and the original, notarized trust documents. I took it all. As I was about to close the safe, my eyes caught on another envelope. It was my mother's jewelry box. Tucked inside, I saw the delicate gold locket my grandmother gave me for my 16th birthday, and the diamond stud earrings she'd left for me in her will. My parents insisted on keeping them safe for me. Safe from what? Me wearing them? I pocketed them without a second thought. They were mine. They were a part of the life they had just stolen from me. Back in my own room, I worked with silent, efficient fury. I pulled out my largest duffel bag. I didn't pack clothes at first. I packed my life: laptop, chargers, textbooks for the upcoming semester, all my important documents and the printed evidence of their theft. I packed the locket and earrings. Then I added enough clothes to last a week. Everything else was replaceable. My freedom was not. My gaze fell on the 3-pack of Hanes socks still sitting on my nightstand, the catalyst for this whole exodus. I picked them up, the cheap cotton rough against my skin. For a moment, I thought about leaving them on my pillow with a note. But a better idea, a colder idea, took root. I walked back to my father's office. I opened the now empty folder from the safe, the one that used to hold my future, and I placed the brand new, still in the packaging socks directly in the middle of it. I left the folder open on his desk, right where he'd see it first thing in the morning. No note needed. The message was perfectly clear. My car keys were already in my pocket. I paid the insurance, I paid for the gas, I paid for the repairs. It was the one thing in this house that was truly mine. I slung the heavy duffel bag over my shoulder, took one last look at the room I grew up in, the room that always felt more like a holding cell than a sanctuary, and walked out. I didn't look back. The house was still. My parents and the golden child were sleeping soundly, unaware their world was about to fracture. I made it to the front door, my hand on the deadbolt. My escape was seconds away. As I turned the lock, my eyes fell on the small ceramic bowl on the entryway table, where we all tossed our keys. Sitting right on top was the key to the Porsche, a sleek black fob with a silver emblem. Of course, Liam had just left it there. So careless, so predictable. An impulse, sharp and vicious, shot through me. I snatched the key. I wasn't going to steal the car. That would make me a felon, just like them. But I could guarantee they wouldn't be enjoying their new toy tomorrow morning. I slipped out the door, the pre-dawn air cold on my face. Freedom was so close I could taste it. I walked across the lawn to the storm drain at the end of our driveway, my fingers clenched around the fob. This was it. The final act. I pulled my arm back, ready to toss the key into the abyss where it would never be found. Just as I was about to let go, a light flicked on in the kitchen. A shadow moved behind the curtain. Someone was up. My heart leaped into my throat, hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I froze, my body tensed, the Porsche key still clutched in my hand. The light from the kitchen window cast a long, pale rectangle across the wet lawn, inches from my feet. I flattened myself against the side of my dad's sedan, praying the darkness would swallow me whole. My duffel bag felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Through the gap in the curtains, I saw the silhouette of my mother. She was just standing there, her back to the window, staring at the coffee maker as if it held the answers to the universe. Every second felt like an eternity. My mind raced. Did she hear me? Was she coming outside? My entire plan, my meticulously executed escape, was about to crumble because I got greedy for one last petty act of revenge. I held my breath, listening for the sound of the back door opening, for her voice calling my name. But there was nothing, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant rumble of the first garbage truck of the day. After what felt like an hour, her shadow moved. She picked up a mug, turned, and walked out of the kitchen, plunging the driveway back into darkness. I didn't move. I waited, counting to 100, then 200. My adrenaline was screaming, but I forced myself to stay still. Finally, convinced she had gone back to bed, I exhaled, the breath I'd been holding releasing in a shaky cloud. The key was still in my hand. The storm drain was right there. It would be so easy, so satisfying. But the close call had shaken me. Getting caught now wasn't an option. Vengeance would have to wait. The most important thing was getting away. I crept over to the Porsche, the key fob in my hand. Instead of dropping it down the drain, I pressed the unlock button. The car beeped softly and the interior lights glowed, illuminating the pristine leather seats. I opened the passenger door, reached across to the glove compartment, and wedged the key deep in the back behind the owner's manual and a stack of napkins. They would find it. Eventually. But not tomorrow. Not when Liam wanted to show it off to all his friends. They would tear the house apart looking for it. They would accuse each other. That image of their frustration and confusion was a small, sweet victory I could carry with me. I closed the car door as quietly as I could and made it to my own beat-up Honda Civic. The engine turned over with a familiar, comforting grumble. I backed out of the driveway, my headlights off until I hit the main road. As I turned the corner, I risked one last glance in the rearview mirror. The house was dark and silent, a perfect suburban picture of a family sleeping peacefully. They had no idea their world had been irrevocably broken. They had no idea their dutiful, practical, invisible daughter was gone. I drove for hours, fueled by caffeine and a righteous, burning anger. The sun started to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, and I didn't feel tired. I felt alive. I felt free. I had the evidence, I had my documents, and I had what was left of my self-respect. The first order of business was to secure my future. I found a 24-hour diner and used their Wi-Fi. With trembling fingers, I logged into my student account for the university and officially withdrew from all my classes for the upcoming semester. There was no way I was letting them use 1 more cent of my stolen money on tuition. The confirmation email felt like another lock breaking off my chains. Next, I found the email address from my grandparents' estate lawyer, Mr. Henderson. He had always been kind to me, slipping me a $20 bill at holidays and asking about my classes with genuine interest. My email was short and to the point. I attached scanned copies of the bank statement and the trust documents from my phone. I explained the situation calmly and factually. I told him I had left home for my own safety and well-being, and that I would be in touch soon. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The final and most difficult part was finding a place to go. I had friends, but going to one of them would be the first place my parents would look. I needed to disappear, at least for a while. I thought of my grandmother's sister, my great-aunt Carol. She lived about 5 states away, in a sleepy town in the mountains. We hadn't seen each other in years, but she sent me a birthday card with $50 in it every single year, without fail. She was my only other living relative, who wasn't under my parents' spell. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot I had. I found her number online and my heart pounded as I dialed. It rang 4 times, and I was about to hang up when a sleepy, raspy voice answered. "Hello? Aunt Carol?" I whispered, my voice cracking. It's me, your niece." There was a pause on the other end. "Honey, is that you? It's 5 in the morning. Is everything all right?" And that's when the dam broke. The adrenaline that had been holding me together for hours finally gave out, and I started to sob. I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a messy, tear-filled rush, the Porsche, the socks, the stolen money, the escape in the middle of the night. She listened patiently, not saying a word until I had cried myself out. When I finally finished, her voice was no longer sleepy. It was firm and cold as steel. "You listen to me," she said. "You put my address into your GPS right now. You drive straight here. Don't stop for anything but gas. Do you understand me? I have a spare room and you have a home here for as long as you need." I choked out a thank you, relief washing over me so intensely I felt dizzy. "And one more thing, honey," she added, her voice dropping lower. "Don't you dare call your parents. Let them sweat. When you get here, we're calling the police." The 10-hour drive to Aunt Carol's was a blur. I kept my phone off, fighting the urge to see the fallout. The thought of my parents waking up, finding my empty room and the socks in the safe, was a distant storm I wasn't ready to face. When I finally pulled into her gravel driveway, nestled amongst towering pine trees, she was waiting for me on the porch with a glass of iced tea and a plate of sandwiches. She was smaller than I remembered, with wiry gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She didn't hug me or offer platitudes. She just took my bag, pointed me to the bathroom, and said, "Wash your face. We have work to do." That afternoon, sitting at her rustic kitchen table, we made the call. Aunt Carol sat beside me, her hand resting firmly on my shoulder as I repeated my story to a police officer in my hometown, my voice shaking but steady. Because I was an adult and had left voluntarily, they couldn't file a missing persons report, but the officer took the information about the trust fund very seriously. He promised to connect with the Financial Crimes Unit. Then Aunt Carol dialed Mr. Henderson, the estate lawyer. She put him on speakerphone. He had already seen my email. His voice was grim. "This is grand larceny and a flagrant violation of their fiduciary duties," he said, the legal terms sounding like thunder. "Do not contact them. Do not answer their calls. You are safe with your great-aunt. I will handle this from here." For the next week, I was in a strange limbo. I slept more than I thought possible, ate the hearty meals Aunt Carol cooked, and took long walks in the woods behind her house, breathing in clean mountain air for the first time in my life. The silence was a balm. My phone, when I finally turned it on, was a war zone. Hundreds of missed calls and texts, frantic messages from my mom alternating between, "We're so worried, please just come home," and "How could you do this to us after everything we've done for you?" My dad's were more direct, threats about calling the police, accusations of theft, the irony was breathtaking, and demands that I return his property. Liam sent a single eloquent text, "Where the hell is the key to my car, you psycho?" I read them all, a detached observer watching a building burn down, and then I blocked their numbers. The first real blow landed about a week later. Mr. Henderson called. He had filed an emergency petition with the court. Armed with the trust documents and the bank statement I'd provided, he had successfully frozen all of my parents' assets. Every bank account, every credit card, everything. The $70,000 was gone, already sunk into the Porsche, but he assured me they would be forced to pay it back. He explained that the dealership wouldn't take the car back without a massive loss, so my parents were now saddled with a luxury car payment they couldn't possibly afford, with no access to any of their money to pay for it. The fallout was spectacular. I heard through the grapevine of a cousin who called Aunt Carol that my parents were in a full-blown panic. My dad had to go to his own father, my grandpa, and beg for money just to buy groceries. The story he spun was that I was a troubled, ungrateful child who had stolen from them and run away. But my grandpa, a shrewd old man who never liked my mom, called Mr. Henderson for the real story. After that, the family support my parents had always taken for granted evaporated overnight. The legal battle was messy, but swift. Faced with irrefutable evidence and the threat of serious jail time, my parents capitulated. They were forced by the court to sell the Porsche at a significant loss. They also had to sell the family home, the one I grew up in, to pay back the full $70,000 they had stolen from my trust, plus my legal fees. The remaining balance of my college fund was transferred to a new account that only I and Mr. Henderson could access. On my 21st birthday, a few months after I'd left, a certified check for over $120,000 arrived at Aunt Carol's house. It was everything they had stolen, plus damages, and the original amount that was left. I sat at the kitchen table, the same place where I'd made that terrifying phone call, and just stared at it. It wasn't just money, it was justice. It was my future, handed back to me. I never spoke to my parents or Liam again. From what I heard, they moved into a small apartment across town. My dad was demoted at work due to the stress and scandal, and my mom had to start working full-time. Liam, without the Porsche and the cushy lifestyle, dropped out of community college after one semester. The golden child, it turned out, tarnished pretty quickly without a steady supply of gold. As for me, I re-enrolled in a different university, a better one, closer to Aunt Carol. I used my money, to pay for tuition and rent an apartment of my own. I finished my chemical engineering degree, graduating with honors. I got a job at a great company, and for the first time, I felt like I was standing on my own 2 feet, on ground that I had built for myself. Sometimes, on a cold morning when I'm putting on my shoes, I'll pull a pair of warm, high-quality wool socks from my drawer, and I'll smile, because I learned the hard way that some gifts, even the ones wrapped in Christmas paper, are really just a price tag. And my freedom, my future, was worth far more than a 3-pack of Hanes. I just had to be brave enough to go out and buy it for myself.